So, Mad Munchkin, tell me what's on your mind.
Well, Doc, may I call you Doc? Right now, I'm being plagued by negative thoughts. You know, feeling insignificant or inadequate. More specifically about my ability when it comes to my artwork. As a full-time artist, it is important for me to ask for feedback from people who see what I create. Constructive criticism is something artists are always hungry for. When people tell me exactly what they think, whether it be positive or negative, it helps me to figure out ways to improve my creative process. I constantly look at what I create and I am never truly happy with it. I feel inadequate because thanks to the wonders of the internet, looking at higher quality art than mine is just one click away. There are hundreds of thousands of artists who work within the art industry with various levels of experience, and I for one just can't help comparing myself to them and wondering why some artists get more recognition than others.
I suppose there are countless others throughout the world who can relate to your feelings here. No matter how hard we push ourselves, no matter how much we learn, or even how lucky we may be in our endeavors, there's always going to be someone who, at least in our own eyes, is creating something even better. That's really the kind of struggle that most everyone has to go through, or at least anyone who is striving to improve upon their own talents. I am reminded of the plight of the sisters during For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils. Not only what happened between Sweetie Belle and Rarity, but also the little bits of backstory we learned about Luna and Celestia. It is never an easy thing to live with, feeling as though you are constantly in someone else's shadow. But perhaps there are other reasons as to why you feel this way.
I find that after I watched the episode Pinkie Pride, I can see why I often feel inadequate. Pinkie Pie, seeing how much attention Cheese Sandwich was receiving for his different style of throwing parties, he's not necessarily better, he just channels his creativity differently. But Pinkie still feels inadequate and eventually feels insignificant, wondering if she really is a party pony. Of course, being Pinkie, she is her own motivational speaker and comes round on her own. Gosh, I wish I was more like that. In the episode For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils, there's another good example of feeling insignificant, as you have pointed out, living in someone else's shadow. There are hundreds of people on the planet with the same talent as me, as well as the same passion and drive. I don't know about you, but I believe that everyone is creative, but some people find it easier to tap into this creativity than others. You get moments when, after feeling inadequate, you ask, what exactly is the point, you know? Why do we bother creating things if there is always someone else out there who, in our eyes, is better?
Can you imagine what life would be like if there wasn't anyone else doing the same things you do? What if you were the only artist there was, and everyone came to you praising all the work you created? I can imagine that most anyone in that kind of situation would feel truly honored by all the encouragement. Feel as though they are serving a great purpose in doing something that no one else can do. But how many of us would strive to improve upon our talents if everything we created was seen as a masterpiece? If we never had anyone else to compete with? Any other works that we could see as being better than anything we create? Would we still feel so passionate about what we do? I suppose you could make the argument that there are a select number of people in the world who would still strive to improve upon their talents and still be passionate about the work even if there wasn't anyone else around to compete against. But I would like to emphasize the fact that no matter how much better we become, no matter how far we push ourselves in life, there will always be something significant that we can learn from others. It can often be very difficult to keep this in mind when we feel our own works pale in comparison to those we admire. But whenever I feel as though my efforts don't quite measure up to someone else's, I try to remember just how far I've come, and that in many ways I would never have felt so passionate about what I'm doing were it not for the fact that I was admiring someone else's work to begin with. Does that make sense to you, Mad Munchkin?
Oh, absolutely, Doc. I would hate to be the only artist on the planet. I just wouldn't be able to handle all that attention. Not to mention, I would miss the company of other artists who are just as mad as I am. I don't make art for the sake of attention, though encouragement is always highly appreciated. I love giving people art, especially when it is something that they have specifically asked me to do, that they weren't able to produce themselves or purchase from a well-known retailer. It means they have something unique that no one else has. There's a real sense of accomplishment in that for me. Putting in a lot of time and effort to produce a piece of high-quality art is very satisfying. After watching the episode Inspiration Manifestation, in which Rarity uses a mysterious magical book that allows her to skip the long mental torture that often comes with creating art, it made me realize the real reason I love art in the first place. It is the creative process behind it. Being inspired and influenced by others around us is all part of the learning process, and figuring out what kind of artist we want to be. Do we want to create for the sake of aesthetics or functionality? Would we really be willing to use a quick fix as Rarity did in order to make a client happy? Or more willing to learn from our mistakes, swallow our pride, and start over? I guess it's not so much about competing with others or crying out for attention, but rather simply expressing ourselves, showing ourselves what we can do. I also saw in that episode that Rarity wasn't able to break free from the spell until Spike told her the truth about what he thought of what she was creating. It wasn't until he was able to construct his criticism in a way that didn't insult her core talent or damage their friendship that Rarity was able to move on and grow. I think we can all learn from this. It's one of my favourite moments from the show because it shows that being nice isn't always the best course of action. Artists are always asking for feedback, both positive and negative, so that they can improve and change. If we are told we are doing a great job all the time, well, that's simply encouragement. It's not, in my opinion, very conducive to a creative atmosphere and can be very frustrating. I, for one, want people to be honest with me and tell me what I can improve. Looking back on how far we have come is also highly conducive and inspiring. We are always striving for perfection, so being able to see where we've gone wrong is in fact a good thing. It means we're learning something.
It sounds to me like you're already learning something today, myself included, come to think of it. I still have a lot of difficulty on learning from constructive criticism without feeling less worthwhile from the experience. And I must admit that I'm still comparing my videos with a lot of others out there who seem to create even better works, at least in my eyes. But it is nice to be getting into conversations like this. Reminds me that I'm still learning, still growing, still improving, while helping others along the way. Thank you kindly for dropping by, Mad Munchkin. Shall we continue on this next week?
Sure thing, Doc. I feel like I got a lot off my chest today. I feel a little lighter, you know?
Glad to be of service.
Well, I better head back now. Thanks for the chat, Doc. Stay creative. Bye.
Take care, Miss Munchkin. It's good to be helping.